If I told you that one of the most feared engines in General Motors history didn't come from Detroit or Germany, but from a small workshop in Melbourne, would you believe it? It didn't have chrome badges or 8 roaring cylinders. It was a straight 6, so unassuming that most people today walk right past it, not realizing this little Aussie power plant once made the world's biggest automaker sweat bullets. Let's talk about the Holden 202, the engine GM tried to pretend never existed. Australia in the 1960s was rough country for cars. Temperatures fried radiators, dust ate carburetors, and the Outback didn't care how expensive your paint job was. Every road was a test track, every trip an endurance run. Holden, General Motors' local branch, didn't have the luxury of designing cars for perfect highways or mild climates. They had to build machines that could survive blistering heat, brutal corrugations, and red dust that could clog an air filter in minutes. So their engineers did what Australians do best. They improvised, adapted, and quietly built something extraordinary. They weren't chasing luxury or flash, they were chasing survival, and what they came up with would become the beating heart of Australian motoring. By 1963, Holden's inline-six red motor had already proven itself as the ultimate workhorse. Farmers loved it for its simplicity. It just ran, no matter what you threw at it. Taxi drivers abused it daily, clocking up hundreds of thousands of kilometers without mercy. And backyard mechanics swore it could run on kerosene if you sweet-talked it enough. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't have chrome pipes or fancy carb setups, but it was dependable, brutally dependable, the kind of engine that kept Australia moving through dust, droughts, and distance. Then came 1969, the year everything changed. Holden's engineers had been quietly experimenting, tinkering after hours, chasing an idea that seemed almost impossible. What if they could squeeze more power and more displacement out of the same physical block? No bigger, no heavier, just smarter. And somehow, they pulled it off. Through meticulous re-engineering, they found a way to increase the bore and stroke while keeping the outer dimensions identical. They refined the metal composition, shaved and strengthened internal walls, rebalanced the crankshaft, and tuned the tolerances to perfection. The result was the now legendary 202 cubic inch inline-six, roughly 3.3 liters of homegrown genius. It didn't roar like a muscle car, but it had the torque and pull of one. It could take punishment, heat, and abuse, and still idle smoothly like nothing ever happened. It was as if the engine was built with stubbornness itself. To Australians, it was another chapter in Holden's story of reliability. But to GM executives in Detroit, it was something else entirely. This unassuming engine from the far side of the planet had just done something that broke their rules. It was smaller, lighter, and cheaper, yet capable of outperforming some of their prized American power plants. And that made the Holden 202 not just impressive, but dangerous. When the test reports finally landed on desks in Detroit, the reaction wasn't quiet curiosity, it was disbelief. 202 wasn't supposed to exist. Not with numbers like that. On paper, it was just an Australian inline-six, but the data told a different story. In long-duration stress tests, it outlasted several of GM's own small block V8s. It ran cooler under pressure, sipped less fuel, and delivered a silky smooth power band that made even senior engineers double-check the results. It was like watching your apprentice walk into the workshop and accidentally build a better machine than you. One that didn't just work, but outperformed the master's prized design. And that kind of discovery doesn't make friends in the corporate world. GM's hierarchy thrived on order. Chevy made the icons, Buick built the cruisers, Pontiac handled the flair. Holden, they were supposed to make tough, affordable cars for farmers and families on the other side of the planet. Nothing flashy, nothing threatening. So when news spread that the Australians had built a 6-cylinder engine that could rival a V8, it didn't fit the global script at all. Quietly, the calls started. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Internal memos began circulating, polite but pointed. Keep development localized. Focus on domestic performance. No need to escalate engineering resources. Corporate speak, of course, for don't make this thing too good. And that's where the real battle began, between pure engineering brilliance and boardroom politics. On the surface, the 202 looked like a middle-of-the-road motor. Rated around 130 to 140 horsepower, it seemed harmless enough, but anyone who'd ever tuned one knew the truth. Those numbers were a lie. This engine was sleeping, not struggling. Beneath that mild-mannered exterior was a foundation built for punishment. The crankshaft sat on 7 massive main bearings, giving it a level of rigidity almost unheard of for its size. Most engines in that category used 4. The result? An inline-six that could rev hard, stay balanced, and take abuse that would twist lesser blocks into scrap metal. Its cast iron block was so overbuilt that mechanics found they could safely overbore it well beyond factory specs, pushing displacement up without sacrificing durability. It was like Holden's engineers had designed it for a future that corporate never allowed. And then there was the cylinder head, the unsung hero. Despite being designed decades before computer flow analysis, its ports and chambers were brilliantly shaped for efficiency. Airflow was clean and consistent, allowing the 202 to breathe better than most engines twice its price. Tuners couldn't believe how much hidden potential it had once you opened it up with new carbs, a livelier cam, or a freer exhaust. Word spread fast among the gearheads. Backyard builders were pushing 180, even 200 horsepower out of the same engine GM claimed topped out at 140. Some race teams were getting even more. And that terrified Detroit, because now this little Aussie straight six wasn't just efficient, it was competitive. It was beating engines that were supposed to define GM's global identity. Mechanics admired it, racers worshipped it, enthusiasts swore by it, and somewhere in a Detroit office, executives were quietly asking each other the same uneasy question. What if we've been out-engineered by our own people? Because while executives were trying to downplay the 202, Australian racers were doing the opposite. By the early 70s, grassroots drivers realized that this little six could punch way above its weight. With a few tweaks, different carb setups, a livelier cam, a tuned exhaust, the 202 started embarrassing much larger engines. The defining moment came at Bathurst, the mountain where legends are born. A rain-soaked race, a fleet of big V8s thundering around the track, and there, slicing through the spray, was a Holden Tirana powered by a humble 202. While others struggled for traction, the six-cylinder kept its cool and crossed the line first. Crowds went wild, GM didn't. Within months, new rules appeared that suddenly balanced the competition. Cars using engines like the 202 were given extra weight or restrictions. Officially, it was about fairness. Unofficially, it was about control. Around this time, Holden engineers pitched something revolutionary: electronic fuel injection. Imagine mid-1970s Australia, an inline-six with the precision of digital fueling. It would have been decades ahead of its peers. The proposal went all the way to Detroit. The answer came back cold: not viable for the market. Translation: you're stepping on our toes. So the EFI prototype vanished, and the 202 was left to age quietly, still powerful but politically inconvenient. What makes this story wild is that GM didn't kill the 202 because it failed. They killed it because it succeeded. It was too balanced, too efficient, too embarrassing to the corporate ladder. And once a big company decides to bury something, it's amazing how fast the dirt piles up. Marketing focus shifted, budgets disappeared, replacement engines were pushed forward. By the late 80s, the 202 was officially retired, its legacy reduced to a footnote. But legends don't stay buried forever. Out in rural towns and small garages, the 202 refused to die. Farmers kept using them as generators, racers swapped them into old Holdens. Young mechanics learned their first rebuilds on them. It became the Australian version of the small block Chevy, the everyman's engine. The thing about simple, solid design is that it ages well. There's no fragile electronics, no over-engineered nonsense, just metal, bolts, and a design that made sense. Decades later, people started realizing how good it really was. Online forums filled up with stories of 202s still running after 500,000 kilometers. Collectors began hunting for specific years, decoding color stripes and casting numbers like archaeologists. The double blue stripe versions from the early 70s became the holy grail. Prices skyrocketed. What once powered cheap sedans now sold for thousands of dollars, sometimes more than the cars themselves. And then came the global fans. Japan, Germany, America. Custom builders started importing 202s for hot rods and resto mods. They loved the torquey, the reliability, and the sound. That clean, even hum only an inline-six can make. Some even said it felt like a cross between a BMW straight six and a muscle car heart. Ironically, the same company that once hit it ended up inspiring an international cult following. Today, there's a thriving aftermarket keeping the 202 alive. Performance cams, alloy heads, electronic ignition kits. You can practically build a brand new 202 from parts catalogs. The community around it is half mechanical, half religious. They trade blueprints, debate oil viscosities, and treat each surviving block like a relic. But beyond the nostalgia and horsepower, the Holden 202 represents something bigger, a moment when pure engineering clashed with corporate fear. It's proof that innovation doesn't always come from billion-dollar labs. Sometimes it comes from a handful of stubborn engineers in a factory on the other side of the world, building something they believe in. GM wanted order. The 202 gave them rebellion. They built it to serve the market, but it ended up serving as a reminder that true craftsmanship can't be contained by corporate structure. If you've ever driven a car that just feels right, where every vibration, every sound, every throttle input feels alive, that's what the 202 was about. It wasn't perfect, it leaked oil, rattled a bit, and smoked when pushed hard. But it was honest, and honesty is rare in engines today. The world's moved on to hybrids, EVs, and computer-governed everything. Engines no longer tell stories, they upload diagnostics, but back then, the 202 told its story in metal and motion. You could feel its heartbeat through the steering column. And every Holden driver knew, under that hood was more potential than GM ever wanted them to realize. It's funny, isn't it? The same company that created the 202 spent decades pretending it didn't matter. But time has a way of flipping the script. Now, the name Holden 202 sparks curiosity, admiration, even envy. Car shows feature restored Tiranas and Monaros running tuned versions that sound better than most modern engines. You'll see young gearheads leaning over them, realizing that their grandparents' cars were hiding serious engineering magic. That's the ultimate revenge, when the thing they tried to suppress becomes immortal. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Genuine innovation doesn't always survive in boardrooms or balance sheets. It survives in the hands of people who care. The backyard mechanic who refuses to scrap an old block. The racer who tunes an engine that's supposed to be obsolete. The enthusiast who keeps passing down the story, and not just of a machine, but of the spirit behind it. The Holden 202 wasn't just an engine, and it was a declaration that skill and creativity can come from anywhere. And sometimes that's exactly what scares the giants the most. So next time someone talks about Australia's contributions to the car world, don't just mention the Utes or the muscle cars. Tell them about the straight six that scared General Motors. Tell them about the engine that refused to stay buried. Because the Holden 202 isn't just a relic of the past, it's proof that good engineering never dies. It just waits for someone brave enough to bring it back to life. If you've ever owned one, worked on one, or just love stories about machines that fought the system, share your experience in the comments. And if you want to uncover more forgotten legends like this, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me for the next untold chapter in automotive history. Because somewhere out there, another masterpiece is still hiding under dust, waiting for its story to be told.